Hello and welcome to another Wardy's Waffle Farm update. What have we got for you this time? Well, I'll start off with looking at when our John Deere 8RX was delivered. If you remember, Rhonda and I are in Portugal on holiday, and so we weren't here to see it. And so Farrell's put together a bit of a video of Tom collecting it, driving it down the road, and they also did some drone footage of the first few fields we were in, and looking at the headland management system and headland automatic turning. So that's at the start. We then look at the amount of rain we've had this week. We've had a lot of rain in the last few days. I go into rainfall figures, look at some of our internal ditches and dikes and how important it is for that to be running properly. And also look at our drainage systems. I've had quite a few questions the last few days, last week or two, when I've mentioned about rain, about our drainage system and our soil. So I'll go into some of that into detail. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please click like, subscribe and the bell icon, and we'll get into this week's update. At my local garage in Leadenham in Lincolnshire, just come for a coffee and just noticed the price of fuel. What on earth is going on when diesel is actually 24p a litre dearer than petrol? It only used to be a few p a litre and now it's 24p, just ridiculous. What on earth is going on with our fuel prices at the minute? And with red diesel being so much more expensive in real terms than white diesel is. A few years ago, 2 years ago maybe, red diesel was half what it is now, and petrol was maybe, white diesel at the pumps was maybe about 30% cheaper than it is now. So our red diesel's doubled, whereas petrol or fuel at the pumps, diesel at the pumps, hasn't. It's Tuesday morning. We've had another 15 millimetres of rain last night, and when you look at this dike you can see why they need doing out. We've got Barry going to be starting soon with the excavator. We've got a pipe there you can see coming out, which is coming out from the yard just through there. So you can just see the amount of water these dikes carry. When you just look down that dike, you can just see the amount of rubbish in it. It'll be great when it's all sludged out. Anyway, just looking at this small field next to it, this is one of the fields that we've had grass for a number of years, and we are I think going to be coming out of haylage, and this field was soloed ages ago, probably in early October when it was really dry still, end of September, and just shows the value of doing things when it's really dry. Obviously this soil now is quite wet at the minute, but no water stood on this field anywhere. We're actually going to be having a trial in here. Hopefully we're going to be growing haricot beans, which are a type of beans that make baked beans, and there's hardly any of those grown in the UK at the minute, and hopefully with Agri we're going to be having a trial here and growing haricot beans in this field, so we'll keep you posted on that. Just driving around the farm this morning, and Ruben and Tom got the songbird feeders all sorted and filled up yesterday. You can see there we had to put a metal patch over that. That's because the squirrels had chewed a hole in the side of that. This is the problem when we've got a lot of squirrels around, which we have. I'm not going to lift that lid because the water will go, but you can see there's a bit of water there as well, which actually is not a bad way, to be honest, water collecting there, because at least the birds can have a drink if they need to. So yeah, that's just one of them. We've got in amongst the trees, totally out the way, but the songbirds absolutely love it. Nala is playing silly devils. I've just come down to part of the farm where we have the beck going through the middle of it, which eventually runs into the big bridge that we put in last year. You saw with those 1.5 metre diameter plastic pipes. And yeah, we've had a lot of rain up to now this last few weeks. In October, we've had 78 millimetres of rain. Up to now in November, we've had 72 millimetres, and we've had 407 millimetres for the year. Now, I know we've thought that 2022 has been a dry year, but I've been keeping rainfall records for 28 years. And in that time, the driest year we've had is 2011, where we only had 410 millimetres in the whole year. So where we are now at 407 this year is what we had in the whole of 2011. But our wettest year was the following year in 2012, where we had 1,017 millimetres. Absolutely staggering. We had 3 times the amount of rainfall in 2012 to 2011. So this last year we're in at the moment now is not our driest year. Anyway, I just wanted to just look at this water and show you this water and just show you why we need to do these dikes out. This is the beck, and it carries water from Leadenham Village and from the A17. And when you look here, look at the amount of water going through this metal pipe. Just huge in volume of water. And this other side as well going through. We'll go and have a look at that plastic pipe in a minute. And look at that water there. That is one of our land drains there. You can see how that's running, lovely clear water. Now that is running out that field behind us, and that is a 6-inch pipe there, and that runs through the middle of that field across there. Now what it does, if I just walk round to the field, just interesting showing you. Somebody's asked me about land drains. All our fields down here are drained with clay pipes or plastic pipes, a chain apart. Now a chain is an old terminology. A chain is 22 yards or about 20 and a bit metres. And this field here, that pipe you've just seen behind us, which is on that corner there, that pipe comes through the middle of the field here somewhere, and you've got half the field drains into the pipe here, then there's another pipe further up there, and that half the field drains into that pipe, and that comes out across through the trees up there. So that's why all these fields are drained. Now the pipes are well below the field's surface. They're probably 1 metre deep, and they've all got gravel above them, or we call it porous filling, to within about 12 inches of the surface. And these are all done years ago when my father had when there was a drainage grants on all throughout the country. So years and years ago there were government grants for draining the land to make them more productive, and also our landlord was also contributing towards the drainage. So actually we had very little to pay, and my father had very little to pay. But you can just see here by the water behind me here, and that outfall just coming out just there, you can see just how valuable drains are and why it's why we need to keep this land drained. And every time we have a wet spot, we actually put a pipe in, so we never ever really allow water to be stood, except we've got little headland here, I'll show you in a minute, where there is a little bit of water stood, and that's because we haven't loosened it at all at depth. I think here it's just been minimal cultivated, really shallow, 2 or 3 inches deep. And we'll just have a look at that. But yeah, water stood on wet land is not good, and this is why we always why all this land's drained and the value of it. You can just see the amount of water that's coming out of that pipe. So just looking at this this dike, this ditch, or this beck as we call it, and there's a lot of rubbish here to take. All these briars are overgrown, and Barry's going to come here with a digger and do this out as well. We're going to have a lot of stuff to come out here. It hasn't been done for a long while. You can see the overhang and all the branches and bushes that's growing out the corner of the bank and the bottom of the water, and we've got to get a flail head, I think, or something like that on the end of the 360 excavator to take all this right back. Hasn't had any maintenance this for 10 or 12 years, and it needs doing badly. There, tree growing out the bottom just there. Just looking here, there's a pipe down in the bottom there. You can just make out the water flowing out of it, but it's broken off, the end of the pipe has, and it's the bank sort of collapsed around it. So this is another important pipe that goes through the middle of that field, which goes through under the agri trials. So we need to get that sorted as well and repair all this corner. So there's a lot of maintenance to do this winter on the dikes and our drainage sort of system. You can just hear a pipe there running. There you are. That's another 6-inch pipe running through the middle of the field I've just mentioned. So this beck turns the corner here and goes that way through our field in between one of our neighbours. You see that's really grown up badly there. I've come a bit further along the beck now to where we put the new bridge in a couple of years ago. So just approaching the bridge that we put in about a year ago. Those regular viewers will have seen us put this pipe in, about 1.5 metre diameter. And obviously you can see now why we've put this such big pipe in with the amount of water that's coming down here. We are going to do the ends up and put some sandbag up the ends here this next summer and put a more vertical wall and slope it back a little bit and finish this off. But done a really good job here, and that is the part of the beck that is controlled by the Upper Witham Drainage Board, internal drainage board, and they do this up. They sludge it out up to this pipe, and they have done that with a weeder basket. You can see there, that's what they've taken out, just put it on the side of the bank at the top. But yeah, done. Glad we put that size pipe in. Just looking at some of these fields here, they're sitting really well. We've got start this corner, that one, it's a bit of water down there, but obviously that's where Barry, we didn't cultivate that, if you remember, we left an area there so Barry could run the digger there, but that's the new track. Going to top up with planings, looking good. So that field is coming spring beans, sitting really well, soloed again about end of September, early October. This is the field you saw us only about 3 weeks ago struggling with the 8RX on the headland. This is coming sugar beet, but you saw us put the drag in this end. That's done a good job here now. And then just across here is a field of winter wheat. I think from memory of variety Gleam, after spring beans, cultivated with the Express, looking really well. Planted, I think, October the 15th, 20th, somewhere there, looking good. And then the field over there is coming spring beans as well, but we're going to direct drill that one. So that's stubble, and we'll direct drill that with the free flow this next March. Got some more wheat going this morning. This is the second load up to date. This was sold a year ago. Can't quite remember what it was sold for, but probably 180-ish. That's that lorry nearly full. Bucket normally holds 2.7 tonnes, especially this year with it weighing such good bushel weight. It's just not very good with the yard being wet. Nala, with the yard being wet with the rain, it ended up taking water in the shed on the tyres. That's 29 tonnes roughly in that lorry. I thought this lorry had already been. It's not. It was the other lorry you just saw a minute ago was the first one. In the office now, I'm just looking at the rainfall figures that I mentioned earlier on in this video, and I just thought it'd be interesting to show you some of the statistics on my laptop, and you can see the variation we've had over the years. This is the spreadsheet that I use now. Really, unfortunately, 2013, you'll see there's no figures there because I had my laptop stolen and I hadn't got anything backed up, and I lost all the figures for 2013, and I'm trying to find them locally, and I can't seem to find them unless I go to RAF Cranwell, which is not far away. They'll probably be able to give them to me, which I've only just thought about. Anyway, looking at the rainfall figures here, I've got two columns here added up. Let me just go back. You can see the figures. I go right back to, let me just get this. I go right back here to 1996. That's when I first started recording rainfall figures for every month, and I've got it all the way through. And there's some big figures here. 2002 in July, 191 millimetres there. So there's some really, really big figures. And there's some big ones here. 2007 was a wet summer. We had May 107, June 176, and July 160. So big rainfall figures there. Yeah, in that year we had 783. Looking at here, start after 2013. There's 9 years here. So I've added these columns up. The 9-year average of our rainfall for month by month is here. Now, the 26-year average, since I've been keeping records, is here. So these are the comparisons. So there's not a lot of difference between January, February and March. April, a little bit of difference. We're a bit drier now than we were. Going back here, not a lot of difference in May. June, fairly similar. July, difference of July here, we are now 9 years average of 44 millimetres. The last 28 years have been 61.8. I suppose really I ought to do an average before the last 9 years to bring it right. Similar there. Little bit of difference in October, November, little bit of difference in December, but not huge differences. And so you can see the rainfall the last few years compared to our last sort of 28 years, or 26 years rather, it isn't hugely different. But, you know, I mentioned in the video about 2011 being our driest year. You can see here 410 millimetres for the year, and the year after being our wettest year. When you look at these figures, 190 millimetres, that's April. Going down here, 121 millimetres, that's June, 100 in July, 136 in August. September and October were a bit dry, but then we go back up to 109 for November and 107 for December. So we had a hugely wet summer and spring there, and back into the winter as well. So that's where we get the rainfall from. But very interesting. But altogether as well, our average over the last 9 years, is 528 millimetres, whereas our 26-year average for the year is 584. So we are getting a bit drier. You know, that is like 60 millimetres less average the last 9 years compared to the last 26. So big differences there. I just thought interesting to show you how I record the rainfall figures and the differences we're getting.